Welcome back to a multi-generational house part 2. Did I nail it? Did you catch the part 2? Little Beyonce, okay. Thank you for rocking with me on this new topic. I've never talked about this publicly before, but if you watched my first video about what it has been like for me as an ambitious woman who is building a business, who is committed to her marriage and to her 2 young children, to live and work and build in a multi-generational household, then I welcome you back. If you have not checked out that video, I recommend that you do. I don't know what side of the screen it'll be on, but I will link it above. Because today we're going to get into some of the juicy stuff. And I've got my notes because I'm not playing with y'all. Whereas in part 1, we were talking a lot about the benefits, of which they are innumerous. Honestly, I couldn't even cover all of that in that one video. Part 2, I want it to be about some of the raw realities, because I know that there are things that people are genuinely concerned about, curious about, nosy about, but also just thinking, if this is not a part of your immediate plan, this is something that you want to begin to build with your parents, if you know that this is an inevitability, whether it is because of your parents aging, whether it is because of a financial need in your family, or you just don't know, life be lifing, and you want to kind of hear from somebody who is experiencing a version of this in her household. I wanted to share some of the real and how we have navigated. And it's not perfect, but again, if you watch part 1, you hear that we consider ourselves to be extremely fortunate and blessed to have the setup that we have. This is not a setup that we felt like backed into or that was unexpected or kind of a sad surprise. This was something that has been a gift and that we continue to build with intentionality and that we consider to be a huge benefit and resource in our lives. But humans are still humans. And we some full-grown adults, and we got these other full-grown adults living in our household. And inevitably, that's going to create moments of friction. Not everything is going to be perfect. So I want to talk about some of those imperfections today, as well as some higher level thoughts that I have about this experience, what it can afford us, and anything else that I can share that might be valuable to a woman who might be listening and wanting to know. Okay, let's dive in. The first reaction people have when I initially share that my mother-in-law, specifically my mother-in-law, but also my mother and father, but that my mother-in-law is staying with us for these very long stints of time. She lives with us part-time. It's not even like she comes for a long stay. She lives with us, as I shared in the first video, for usually 5 to 6 months at a time. So she's here, and it's year over year over year. This is her timeshare. The reaction is typically and you like this? And that's a good thing? It's always girl, is that crazy? Are you okay? Do you send help? And my answer to that, by and large, is that I am more than okay with it. I wish that the grandparents were here all the time. But I understand where that comes from. I think the first place that people think about this is when you're used to living without your parents. You left your parents' house a long time ago. And inviting them back into your house, back into your environment, back into your rhythms, as you have lived a full adult life, establishing your own norms, establishing your own rhythms and boundaries and practices that maybe you don't want to have to engage with them about. It can feel confronting. There might be some tension there. And so things like privacy, how do you navigate that? One of the things that is definitely a challenge, and this is not specific to my parents or my mother-in-law, but one specific challenge is that I hardly ever have my house empty. You know what that's like when you can just on a random afternoon and you look around and it's like the kids are off somewhere or they're at school, especially because I work for myself and I work from home. So the kids are at school. Maybe my husband is away for travel. And I just have the house to myself. Nobody needs me. Nobody's asking me questions. There's no noises. It's just to myself. I just want to dance around in my drawers. I want to turn on what I want to turn on. I want to eat what I want to eat. I don't have to worry about trying to front for these kids because I'm trying to make sure that they have all of their macronutrients and are making all the perfect choices with what they eat. And they don't need to get in mommy snacks. Okay? That is rare. That becomes a rare moment. Even me sitting here right now is a little bit of a compromise to the fact that I have people in the house. I mean, my kids will be home at this time of day anyway, but I could have recorded this earlier in the day. I've been wanting to record out by my green couch sofa area, which I've currently only done one video in that spot because I really like the vibe and like the feel of that video. It feels like a more welcoming. This feels intimate. Obviously, we're in my bedroom, but I want to switch it up. I really like recording out there, but it's in an open space. It's like a public space, and I need it to be quiet. I need everybody gone to ensure that I don't have like nonsense floating up into the recording. That is like one of the first things I think of privacy wise. I also am doing I run my business out of the house, and my business happens to be an executive coaching business. And so I have to make sure that, I have an office, which I do, with a closed door, and afford my clients the kind of privacy that they deserve. And so even though there's nothing that's coming out or anything like that, and my office is off in its own sort of sequestered in its own wing of the house, it's not a wing, but it's in its own little area of the house. It's still just like there's extra noises. There might be, an extra, like another delivery. Somebody's got something or somebody's coming to the house to do a thing. It's just a little more action when I'm used to being able to focus and work and just have, just fewer of those things. And they can feel like distractions or interruptions. I record a lot for this channel and for my podcast. And that's definitely a compromise. If I want to have a fight or make up with my husband, that's a little bit challenging. It can just feel like everybody's in your business, and it is what it is, Again, I share all of this from the perspective that I'm firmly rooted in, that it's worth it. It's worth it all. But those things are real, okay? I'd say the second thing, though, that comes to mind regarding having these full-grown people in your house is it's not just another adult in your house. These are the adults that raised you. These are your parents. So they still think of you in many instances as their child, because technically you are, but I'm not a child. And then by extension, there are the values and practices and things that they've instilled in me, of which I'm so grateful for the majority of what I have taken from them. But obviously I also remix stuff and have left some stuff out and have evolved the way I think about parenting with my children. And so those boundaries of like what I should be doing or what the kids should or shouldn't be doing, there's conversations that we have to now navigate because they have a perspective and opinion that may or may not be different than what we have. And oftentimes what I have found to be really helpful, again, we are so blessed that I can have conversations with my parents, or that we can have conversations with my husband's mom to help them understand our perspective, right? Because there are things that when they talk about their childhood and some of the practices, okay, the corporal practices of that their parents employed in their, rearing, and those things that they did not do with us, it's like, this is just what happens. You're supposed to iterate and get better and also respond to the ever-changing world. But sometimes that takes some translating back. You have to take a moment and explain yourself, which is, it's like another little lift, a little addition to the cognitive load, but it still it still pales in comparison to the cognitive relief of having, again, the additional childcare, the additional home care, the additional just support in the household. But it's a thing. It's a thing, okay? In terms of household standards, I think it's every now and then there's like little tiny pet peeve things where it's just like, we don't normally put the thing right there, or like my parents don't know where their dishes go. So we have to like kind of redo where things are sometimes, but it's like really minuscule stuff that just happens when anybody is staying in your house for an extended period of time. Everybody just does things slightly differently, but by and large, that has not really been an issue, I don't think. There's just, little tiny, nitpicky things here and there where it's just like, no, we don't put that there, or we don't use that. Or I think one of the things for us for sure is we have a high value around food quality and also like what kinds of snacks the kids can have and a discernment around ingredients or even just like where we shop in the first place and how much of those things can be processed. I mean, I kind of feel for my parents' generation living in this world. And I guess I should say, like, if you came up through the 60s and 70s where, like, food quality standards, even for snacks and treats and things like that, it was just a very different world than the post 80s, 90s world that we're living in. And certainly in the 2000s with what is in our foods and our generation as millennials becoming, I think, pretty obsessed, most of us, many of us, with all the documentaries that have come out in our lifetime around the additives, the food industry at large, and us just having a little more vigilance. I'm not gonna say hypervigilance, but a little more vigilance around what we should have. So like they'll go around to the random store and grab a random snack and we'll be like, did y'all look at the package? Why let me just stop, don't get the package thing at all. Like things like that we run into, but again, pales in comparison to the benefits. There can also be times where I feel like a daughter, a dutiful daughter, and my inner good girl gets activated. And then I can get into an energy of feeling like I need to perform or I need to, be different and not fully relax. And this is not an all the time thing, but if I'm truly honest, like that can be a part of the experience for me sometimes. I have to remind myself to snap out of that and to really exercise the bravery, the courage to be in my full grown natural voice, to be in the whatever it is that I'm in, and or sometimes just to take the space and the time away. I like a lot of alone time, if I'm really honest. I'm not an introvert. I think I consider myself more of an ambivert because I am really juiced up. I like being around people, but I also really enjoy my own company. Maybe that's the Libra in me, I don't know. But yeah, not feeling guilty for needing that and taking that regardless of the fact that they're here, because I think it can be confusing, and I think it's less so this way at this point, but it can be confusing to have people who come and, especially if it's your parents, to come. And normally if you're hosting somebody for like a week or two, even that's a long time to host somebody for more than a week, just like to play host to somebody. That's a long time. And so you really have to drop those pretenses early on, I think. And we've gotten into a cadence now where it's kind of clear, like, y'all come here, this is your timeshare, you live here too, you know where the things are. We've all been in this house now long enough, and we're not hosting. So like usually the first night or two, we'll try to do like more of like a welcome moment, have a nice dinner. We might go out or order something special if they're tired from coming off the road and do a thing, or I might cook something really nice. And then after that, it's like, okay, y'all live here now. Y'all live here now. We're not doing that. And then they just get into their natural rhythms. And my dad likes to do dishes at the end of the night for us a lot of times. My mom will make sure that the meals and things like that are out. Same thing with my mother-in-law. She jumps in, I think, so hard as soon as she gets here. She just wants to get to work. She just wants to help around the house and jump in with things that we need for the kids, but especially the domestic stuff. She goes crazy trying to do everything. And we were like, okay, girl, don't overdo it. We need you for the long haul now. Like, let's be easy. I think that it's taught me a lot about what true support can look and feel like. And I think it's an interesting lesson to learn from your own parents experiencing them in this way, because they have, at least in my experience with my life with my parents as their child, coming up, I've always seen them as support. They've always been supportive. They've always been invested in my life. They've always been present and generous with me, with their time, with their teachings, with their resources, obviously feeding me, taking care of me, exposing me to things, cheering me on. And to receive their support now as I am supporting these children, as I am navigating all that comes with being in a marriage, and to still get to get like mom and dad, to get their parental love in this way is, I don't know, it's a very special thing. And I think that is because I've gone for such a long period of time, specifically from the time I left their house to the time I had their grandchild and they started having these long stays with us. I've gone a really long time operating independently, learning, which is what they taught me, to have some sense of self-reliance, to be industrious, to like make my way and to marshal my own resources and to be able to navigate the world and figure things out. I spent a long time through my 20s up until my early 30s, which is when I had my first kiddo, learning how to do a lot of things on my own. They raised me to be independent. And so to step into an interdependent relationship, this is probably, outside of my marriage, it's the only other like very consistent, ongoing, and intimate interdependent relationship that I have, which is with me and my parents and my mother-in-law. Like, they're all my parents now, and they're also the grandparents for my children. And I think it's a different dimension of help, that it's one thing to talk about it, it's another thing to experience it. And I'm grateful to be experiencing it in the way that I am with them. So speaking from a cultural and I guess economic perspective, I did want to explore what feels like both counterculture and also like, again, the way things I feel like should be. In many ways, as I'm even talking through all the benefits that I get to experience because of who our parents are and because of the blessings that we have in how they show up for us, even though it's not all roses and sunshine all the time, okay? Sometimes I'd be like I said, y'all get out of my house, everybody go. But that's not specific to them. I just like alone time. I guess the best way to put it is that I do wish that more people had this. And I recognize that in talking to many of my clients, part of why they have become so incredibly successful is that they have learned an intensity of self-reliance through their upbringings in a way that it wasn't quite that as intense for me. I never had the sense that I need to fend for my own basic security or my own basic needs, whether those be practical needs like meals or housing or clothing or things like that. Like I did not have to fend for myself in those ways, or, major emotional needs. I didn't grow up feeling like I was a burden or that there was something like wrong about my entire existence, or that I was being like fully rejected in some way, or I didn't experience extreme abandonment or an extreme over-reliance on me to carry the household or carry things emotionally that I wasn't totally ready for. I got my stuff. Okay, I'm not getting into it on the internet. That's what I got a therapist for. Don't get me wrong. But I recognize that for many of the women that I have worked with and that I know who are extremely successful, that has been hard won from a life that handed them nothing, and that they have had to claw and make and recreate and transmute a lot of anger and sadness from what was not provided, that they had to figure out how to provide for themselves, however messy that may have been, that has gotten them into incredibly difficult arenas, to compete at incredibly difficult levels, and to know that they can always rely on themselves to do it all, right? If that was the narrative coming up, chances are at this point, the life stage that I'm at, when you maybe are married and or have your children, and there's a household that needs support in its management, there are multiple lives that are now a part of the ecosystem of your current life that need additional resourcing, that you can't count on mama, you can't count on daddy, auntie, or grandma. Like, you have been their resource. In some ways, I do feel grateful, but I also feel a little bit guilty that this is such an option for me, if I'm honest about it, because I know that it is not an option for so many others. And in knowing that and experiencing what I now get to experience, I think it also amplifies in me the urgency for women who don't have it to find a way to create it by any means necessary. I was in a conversation recently where I was just discussing the way that I'm resourced in this way and how I have this village that we've been able to, again, even across the country, across the world with our parents, to create these long stint sort of village moments around the functioning of our household, around the caretaking of our children, that I see how critical it is, that this is a meaningful element to what true thriving and success should be built on. And I don't think I would be well. I don't think I would be well. Something would have been meaningfully compromised if I did not have the kind of support that I do have. I want more and more women to recognize the urgency and insist on this help. And there's still so many other ways that I resource myself. And if I put this into the broader context of our society and the way these systems are set up to continuously isolate us and put more and more pressure on us to take care of ourselves and to be fearful of each other, and I can't trust nobody with my kids, and I get it, them stories online are crazy, the stories in the news are wild, but I also recognize that there is something by design that is happening. You think about who owns these media narratives and who benefits from us constantly hearing over and over again, you're not safe, you can't get help. And also that if you don't stay in constant motion, if you don't cover all the bases, you are not worthy of basic care, that you need to earn care. I want us to not be bought into that belief, but to have a full awareness that that is what is being created around us, and that we have to fight for this care. And so I do in other ways. There are things that my parents cannot provide to me, which are the things around like my physical and mental wellness. That's why I hire all of the people that I do for my physical health, my trainer, my acupuncturist in the past. I'm not working with one right now. The herbalist I've worked with for a number of months after having my child. The chiropractors who have been amazing, who've literally helped me put my body back together. First of all, survive pregnancy and then put myself back together afterwards. All of these different things that I am able to create space for because I have the additional care at home. I have a little additional support at home. And also, I just also want to be clear here too. It's not like we have 24/7 care just because our grandparents are here. Like I said, my husband's mom is an adventure girl, and she's constantly traveling. So even though she might be staying with us for 6, 7, 8 months at a time, she might be gone for a month because she's across the world doing some adventure. I mean, she takes these excursions. She was in Antarctica. She's been to all 7 continents and almost in a calendar year in the last year, and she's 70, okay? She's not just here waiting on us hand and foot. That's not the situation. And like I said, my dad be on that golf course. My mom also does have a condition which causes her to have some physical limitations in terms of like what she can physically do. She can't just pick up the kids and drive and count on her body to do certain things physically. So it's not like we have, this is not like a Kardashian situation where we have a whole care team that is just waiting on us and handling all the things, like just to be very, very clear. But again, it's in those margins that we are able to pull in quite a bit of help, and it's not all the time. It's not super consistent. It is not covering every base, but even a half a base on a Tuesday is better than nothing all week long. Okay. And so we are getting that. And I don't know. I'm trying to pull my thoughts together around like what I want to offer here regarding like how non-negotiable I feel like this is. And if you have the means to get I think the emotional load of childcare support that you can count on consistently, I think putting everything else on hold if children are part of the equation, to figure that out, to find the support and to really examine all of the ways, all of the little ways that you are showing up, trying to be a great mom, trying to be a great parent to your kid that maybe don't matter that much. Or that you maybe do matter to some degree, but that you don't have to be the person that does it. Like one little small example was one of the things I love to do. It is my joy, but I'm in this sprint moment, is I like to decorate for the kids for different holidays. And my mom, I get that from my mom because she always decorated for, some of the bigger holidays. She was into like the little tchotchkes. She always made the cutest Easter baskets for us. We always had like really fun Halloween costumes, and she would put out little stuff, and so I'm 2.0, but I'm like, I got it from you, girl. And if I don't stay on this recording schedule and go meet this appointment and go have these calls and handle things I need to do today, I'm going to be really set back this week. I really should not stop and decorate for Valentine's Day. And it's her joy too. So I was like, Mom, even though it's something I love to do, like she's here. It's not a huge thing, but she was happy to do it. She loves doing little things like that. And I don't have to think about it. And I know it's going to be like, again, I'm 2.0, so I learned from her. So she's going to do it cute. So anyway, little things like that really do matter. And yeah, taking some time to examine all the different ways, whether it is creating the little cute Pinterest moments for your kids that maybe you don't have to do every single thing, or if it's something else, how can you get more help and really prioritize your resources, your financial resources towards that? Because the emotional lift, the emotional weight, that's what I account for the most. When I don't have to, I'm not saddled with constant like worry or weight that like my kids are not taken care of, that my house, my environment where we live is like a mess. Like those are the baseline level things that like everything else sits on top of in my mind. And so yeah, I think I'm just trying to rewrite the story of independence that we've been taught in my life. And this is one way that it is functioning well for us right now. And I'm grateful to be able to share what I'm taking away from it. And if there's anything I'm sharing has something to offer you, I hope that you take it and run with it. Okay. So you may be wondering, how do I know if this is a good fit for me? How do I take some initial steps? I don't have the answers, Sway. I don't got the answers, but I can speak from my personal experience of just from my perspective, some things that might be worth considering if you're trying to make that decision for yourself. So again, financially, I think that's where things become a burden the most for folks. And that is something that I don't have to consider so much because, again, we're like a timeshare stay situation. But I would think through and be really honest with yourself, you and your partner, if this is two folks, you know, making this decision together and you have the opportunity to bring somebody in closer to the house. Maybe this is like you kind of had the option, but you've been like, you know, we haven't created the time to dedicate to it, or maybe like putting the resources behind it has felt like challenging. You just need to really think through these things. I would be really honest about like a financial situation that you do not resent, because that is the surest and fastest way to make this decision completely unsustainable for you. I think the way we would probably think about is like, certainly what would we be paying for? Again, childcare is the biggest lift for us, but even like the gas money of taking our children back and forth. And if you can figure out how to quantify the emotional impact, the emotional lift that maybe having a grandparent in the house could provide, like what money would you say that is worth it? It might feel like this astronomical number, or it might not, but just trying to get clear on what feels valuable and fair regarding who's covering what, mortgage, rent, other bills wise, utilities wise. I would imagine we might do something where we kind of figure out, hey, there's just a bill or two that you all now just handle as a part of the household, like some utility thing or something like that, and not make them responsible for the actual house. Or if we went in to get a much bigger property together, we'd probably structure things up front, depending on, you know, again, how the mortgage is laid out, what the down payment looks like, those kinds of things. And then kind of coming up with like a schedule for groceries, or just setting some like intentions or expectations on meals and groceries. We don't really have to do that because it's just happening pretty organically in our household for now. But if we needed to, we would. I think the second thing to think through is certainly space. Do you have the space and the space tolerance? I talked about this in the first video, which was we came from living 10 years in New York in teeny tiny box size apartments. And so having some more people in our space, while sometimes it's just like, you know, I would love to have an empty house, as I keep talking about more often, still had more of we had a higher threshold, I think, of tolerance for more like people being in our space. But the house that we do live in right now, part of what we really liked about it was that there's like a little balcony space. Like there's like basically 3 porches. So there's places for people to kind of spread out and sit. We also live in Southern California, so being outside year round is a pleasant thing to do. So there's some space in that. We have the guest room set up, and I specifically wanted a guest room that felt spacious and big and had a big closet attached to it as well. So it felt like a place where somebody could chill out. Set up that guest room to feel like it's fully furnished. It has like a nice like kind of recliner rocking chair. That's the chair I used when I first had my daughter as our little rocker. And it's great for our parents, and a dedicated bathroom. This was like the setup that we were able to create, but I think really accounting for the space that if you're honest with yourself, it may not always be perfect and ideal, but like, what are some of the things that are at the highest risk for greatly compromising your like sanity with having somebody else living in your house for an extended period of time? Is it like, I just need to know that there's a bathroom that is dedicated, that is tucked away because, my parents, for some reason, they're wild with how they keep their bathroom or whatever, or I know that my mom's going to want to decorate the space the way she wants. She's like very particular. So like, where am I going to feel comfortable? Just trying to think through what are the must-haves space-wise. Childcare, obviously, thinking about who does what would make an optimal situation and who also has what strengths. Again, we are playing to the strengths that our individual parents have and them playing those roles, and us also not having expectations that they're going to develop new strengths that they don't already have. Like, it doesn't make sense. You kind of got to work with what's there and let people play to those strengths. I would also think about like conflict resolution. So we haven't dealt with anything that serious, but it's just something to maybe think through. Like, this is just about creating social norms. If there's somebody who's going to be living with you, especially, again, our parents are timeshare, but if it's like a permanent situation, you might need to develop some norms. I think this could be also an incredible opportunity to go and get like family counseling to begin to help you set up some of these norms and some communication patterns that are healthy. It's not always enough that you're in therapy if you don't have somebody who is helping you navigate the full dynamic and that everybody is a participant. If you can arrange for something like that, I think that would be amazing and ideal. And to not shy away from offering that or even making that mandatory if you feel very strongly about it, right? That could be a boundary for you. It's like, you can only live here if we're in group therapy. that might be the situation for you, but I think thinking through that is important. Privacy, so things that you might want to just be really clear about what is shared and what isn't. Something that somebody told me a really long time ago is when it comes to your bedroom for you and your spouse, to keep that somewhat sacred, to make that like your space. My parents don't really come into our bedroom. They don't just like pop in or anything like that. Even when they would stay with us, we would rather pay for them to be in a hotel if we don't have the right space than to like give up our bed. And we're also we're in a financial position to do something like that. But there is something that feels like we have a space that is just ours, and that we can retreat to when we need to, and that we know it's ours. And that's been really, I think, a helpful piece of the equation. And to communicate that if you need to, if it seems like somebody doesn't get that, that's a boundary for you. Obviously, like being somewhat clear. I will tell you this, the grandparents, they do what they want. So we don't even know when they're coming. We always have like a general kind of idea, like they're going to come in the winter. They're going to come around the holidays. Well, sometimes they'll be like, we're on the road. We've been driving for 6 hours. Sometimes they take road trips to come visit because they stop and see a bunch of people. They're retirees. They live their life along the way. We don't know they're coming until they're on the way half the time. And so, figuring out how you can, negotiate those communication patterns and expectations as well. And generally, how long are you trying to stay? What are your intentions? What are some of the conflicts that you may or may not have that might require you to leave? Depending on what kind of parent you have, if they're super planners and super organized, or if they're a little more like our parents who are like retired and like somewhat bohemian, then do the best you can there for sure. This has proven to be one of the greatest exercises, in addition to becoming a mother and in addition to running a business, becoming an entrepreneur. These are like great therapies. Having your parents come and live with you is another one of those things in life that teaches you about new dimensions of yourself that you maybe did not know were there, new needs or preferences or perspectives that you didn't even realize that you had. And so this can be I think an opportunity to grow you if you allow it. There are like difficult conversations, challenging conversations that if you have parents who live at a distance that you can avoid for longer periods of time or forever, that are much harder to avoid in their entirety when they are actually staying in your house for months and months at a time. So I think that that's an incredible potential growth opportunity, a growth benefit if you allow it to be. Overall, I think that the return on this investment, sometimes it feels like a compromise, but most of the time it feels like an investment. The return is immeasurable. It has been for us. This is not a sales pitch that you need to do this, but I recognize that capacity is not about time management. This has been one of the greatest, most instructive experiences that I've had as an adult at this stage of life, to really reinforce that capacity is about who's holding it with you. You're never going to be able to multiply yourself, but you can do some of their dirty work and make some of the trade-offs that need to be made to bring more people in. And if there is somebody in your family that you think could be a great candidate, and this could be a cousin, this could be a auntie, or like this could be someone who isn't, maybe if you don't have the parent to rely on, but there's somebody who could come in and be a part of it, that you all could build something together, create the village together. I just think that, especially with the way that the world is continuing to move, that we are going to need each other and build these villages with each other in new and more aggressive ways. And this has been our story. So let me know in the comments what you are taking away. If you are considering this, if you are already a part of a multi-generational household, girl, teach me something. What didn't I talk about today that I should have talked about? And yeah, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.